Hey guys, we've got your, like, what's this, third? Your third match of Top Cut. We're 75% of the way there. I'm Regina. I did use ally switch from that past time you saw me in substitute, I guess.
Was it super effective?
No.
Oh, well, actually, I use substitute.
You use ally switch. So
which I don't even know if that's how that mechanic works.
I don't know if you can.
You know what?
Probably.
We'll try that out later.
But we are going to have your next top 8 match. So Brandon Huang versus Meghan Hyman. So it is going to be a rematch from their Swiss. They were both undefeated.
They were both undefeated.
And then Meghan won that Swiss match. So.
All right. Well, that's going to be super interesting. Do you know if it was like a – did it go to game 3?
Yes, it was a 2-1 game. I think I had asked Brandon about it a little bit, and he had said that he had played the matchup not as well as he could have.
Okay.
But we did see both of them on stream yesterday. Brandon had beaten Nails on stream, and Meghan had played. Oh my goodness, I'm blanking so hard.
That's okay. It's been a long day. It's been a long day. It's been a long day. I believe that was the Ashton match, wasn't it?
No, Ashley played Ashton.
Right. Anyways, it's been a long day. Both these trainers are. It looks like they're getting situated and getting ready to start. I'm really excited. I had a chance to watch the first match that we featured in Top 8, and then I caught a little bit of the second match. But from what you guys were talking about, it sounds like that those Xerneas, there were like speed ties the entire time?
This Incineroar was a speed tie.
Oh, Incineroar.
Okay. Speed tie, which mattered for that fake out. But going to Meghan's team, she had the Talonflame, and that was my favorite thing like seeing that, I think she and Diana Brasser running the same sort of team. So it's actually going to be really cool.
Yeah, and whenever you have a match where a lot of the Pokemon are the same, it's always really fun to see how that plays out. And, I can't help but wonder, both these trainers were on stream yesterday. We do have all of our VODs available via YouTube, actually. They were all up last night, which I'm really proud of us for doing that.
You should be so proud of yourself.
I'm also proud of myself because I was the one working on that. But, they could have gone back. They could have sort of watched that game. And especially in combination with their notes from when they played in Swiss, there's no doubt in my mind that these trainers have a game plan ready to go for this match. So what that game plan is going to be, it's tough to say. I really wish we would have seen them play yesterday, or maybe had a little bit more information about how Brandon sort of, I mean, you said it yourself, he felt like he didn't really play that matchup right. I kind of want to know, well, how did he play it, and what does he think is right?
Yeah, I feel like the toughest parts about going to Top Cut against the rematch is you guys are essentially continuing your play from yesterday.
Oh, without a doubt.
You've got that extra time to kind of at how the games went, what's been happening. And I think the fun thing on Brandon's team is that Terrakion, and I'm really hoping we get to see it, honestly.
It's such an interesting Pokemon as well. I mean, honestly, I haven't really seen a Terrakion do well since like the Whimsicott Terrakion combination back in the day. Yes. You use Beat Up, you get with the Justified ability, you get a bunch of attack boosts, and then Terrakion maybe is holding a Choice Scarf or something, or has a Tailwind behind it and is fast, and Rock Slide just does Rock Slide things. But, without the Whimsicott on the team, I don't think that strategy might be coming into play. Instead, it looks like Terrakion's almost taking a situational role here to help knock out Pokemon like Incineroar, and Yveltal is probably what it wants to stare down. I don't think it wants to stare down a Xerneas necessarily, especially with that Talonflame on the field.
Yeah, and so, I mean, Meghan walking in on here, so I think she might be feeling a little, comfortable having won that matchup yesterday, but I think Brandon's going to come back here with a vengeance, and this is the part where, studying your matchups the night before for Top Cut is really nice, and I think Brandon is going to go in here with a game plan. I want to say, a big threat here is that Groudon Venusaur combination is always so threatening to have.
It is, and the unfortunate thing for Brandon is that he has the Kyogre on his team. The Kyogre can remove the weather from the field, but Venusaur is still going to be able to deal massive damage with something like a Grass Knot to that Pokemon. So he just has to be very careful about how he plays this game. I like this lead. I like the fact that he's going to get an Intimidate down on that Groudon, and he threatens the Fake Out onto, either the Groudon or the Xerneas. And looking at his Lunala, we already saw this once today in Top Cut. Lunala can knock out the Xerneas potentially with a Z move if it wants to do so. And if that's what Brandon has, and if that's what he decides to do this turn, he could easily get rid of one of the most biggest threats on Meghan's side of the field. and start this game off right. And maybe that was something that he didn't do in the past. Maybe he didn't respect that Xerneas.
Yeah, and I mean, Meghan starts off with this sort of like powerful lead, but Brandon responds in kind of like so that Lunala is always Pokemon to see, especially with that potential for Z move, and that shield still is able to threaten so much damage, and like the fake out of support from Incineroar is also really important on there, and it's kind of like this tough call now for Meghan to decide which Pokemon she's gonna like switch out.
Or if she decides to switch at all. I don't think she necessarily has to switch here. It's an option. Groudon certainly doesn't like being intimidated, but on the other hand, maybe it just wants to deal a little bit of chip damage before it leaves the field. You know that one of these Pokemon is probably going to be on the receiving end of a fake out. It's a very safe turn one from Brandon. So if she doesn't want to make that bet, she can just attack with both these Pokemon, but instead it looks like she's comfortable removing the Xerneas from the field.
Yeah, and Incineroar is going to come in place for that. Gets its own Intimidate off now into Brandon's Incineroar. Lunala obviously not going to matter as much here, but is going to really try to protect her Xerneas as Precipice Blades connects with both Pokemon on Brandon's side of the field. Is going to be able to break that shield on the Lunala and then Intimidate, helping the Incineroar on his side, allowing now, though, Brandon to go for a U-turn into that Groudon, gets a little bit of damage in there, and allows him to be in a little bit of a better position to deal with both this Groudon and this Incineroar, and also knowing that there's a Xerneas in the back.
No fake out as well, so that's an indication that Brandon was confident that Xerneas wouldn't be going for Geomancy, or that we're going to see this Lunala do something this turn that otherwise would have negated that Geomancy. And you got to think, Lunala is moving last. That Roar is going into that Incineroar, and who knows what it's going to send out next.
It's going to bring in that Talonflame, which, kind of nice in this, both like in the Sun position and able to have that Gale Wings ability, has that potential for a priority Z move without Fire EMZ. But Kartana is also out on the field, which threatens a lot of damage onto Groudon. However, this sort of matchup between Talonflame and Kartana isn't exactly in favor of Kartana.
It isn't, but if that Kartana is holding the Focus Sash item, there's no way that Talonflame is going to be able to remove it from the field until it has one shot at Leaf Blade. So if Brandon wants to take that, now is a decent turn, but he might lose his Kartana in exchange.
And we do have that Incineroar coming back in for that Talonflame. So actually, being revealed as the last Pokemon on that team, I think is a little bit difficult for Meghan. However, another Intimidate into that, so an Intimidate into that Kartana for the first time, and now Lunala getting at -2. But Brandon saying, you know what, we're going to get Kartana out of here. We're going to bring in our own Incineroar, so we have these cats coming out to play consistently. Gets an Intimidate now into Meghan's Incineroar, while his own Incineroar is unintimidated. Both of them are going to be able to have fake out pressure, obviously not onto that Lunala on Brandon's side.
It just goes to show you, like, how crazy good Intimidate is right now, because you just see these Incineroar rotating in and out constantly. That Z move from the Lunala, if it targets down that Groudon, I think that's going to be a big chunk of damage, but if it goes into that Incineroar, like we saw earlier, it's going to be nothing.
Yeah, I think that's tough, because now if you're Brandon, you're trying to figure out what Meghan's going to bring in, what she is. Oh yeah, it goes into that Incineroar. I think he was hoping for that Xerneas to come back in at some point, and that's always a really tough call, because we had seen that earlier as well, obviously with Ashton and Aaron's match, and the Incineroar can take that Z move really nicely, but it's always one of those tough calls where what Pokemon comes out into this spot.
It is, but fortunately for Meghan, there's only so much you can do to mitigate a Z move unless you're running a Smeargle and can then follow me and, just not take damage from it. But in her case, I think getting the little bit of chip damage on the Incineroar in exchange for knocking out her opponent's Incineroar thanks to a critical hit, that critical hit's going to be huge. That's probably the best trade she could have made this turn.
Yeah, especially because that Groudon was at -2.
It was, yeah.
That the amount of damage it did to that Lunala was inconsequential at that point, but being able to knock that Incineroar is huge. That Kartana coming in now unintimidated, but at least Meghan, if she can ever reset that Groudon, never has to worry now about those Intimidates. If she can take out that Kartana, she'll be in such a great spot.
She will be in a great spot, and it's a tough decision to make right now. I think if I were in Brandon's shoes, you just have to start attacking. He's already down one Pokemon, and I don't think the strategy he's taken on early game of just switching Pokemon in and out, trying to build those Intimidates up is going to really pay off for him in this matchup, because Meghan can just do the same thing. He needs to start using the Kartana's more offensive side. If he can predict what Pokemon is going to come in and in which spot, assuming Meghan is going to switch to this turn, I think she has to. Then I think that will be a great way for him to regain the momentum. But, what do you pick? Do you think that the Groudon's going to switch out and drop those Intimidates, or that Incineroar is going to switch out and come back with more Intimidate?
I mean, Kyogre is a nice way to kind of like stop all this from happening. You are going to be able to bring in that weather, have the potential for those water spouts. I mean, you know, your Kartana could potentially be Leaf Blade here, but now we've got that Xerneas coming in at a pretty okay spot as well. Is going to be able to, you know, just maybe potentially set up for later on. This Groudon still intimidated, but Sacred Sword from that Kartana going to go into what was that Incineroar. So Meghan very comfortable with saying, you know what, I'm going to bring in this Xerneas just in case. A miss finally from this Precipice Blades is going to connect with the Kyogre though, which is way more important. At least you can try to mitigate damage from that later. However, that -2 on that Groudon, it just shows you how little damage it does now.
I think Meghan needed to switch out the Groudon that turn, knowing that the Kyogre was the Pokemon in the back of Brandon's party. It's really unfortunate for her because this Groudon, you know, it didn't do enough damage on the switch to really remove the threat of Water Spout from the field. That's so powerful. And if that Kyogre is holding the Choice Scarf item, it's going to move first. It's going to do a ton of damage. And that plus like a Smart Strike from that Kartana should knock out that Xerneas. So, you know, she's forced to protect and go for this fake out, I think, next turn. But then still, she's not in a great spot. I think she needs to keep switching things around before she's able to do what she needs to do to win this game.
Yeah, and I think this Incineroar is going to be obviously the sacrifice here, as that Xerneas hides behind the protect. Water Spout now from that Kyogre is going to be able to get that Incineroar. I mean, even in like that rain with like that much HP left, this Incineroar is just, you know, it's saying, hey, I will sacrifice myself for your Groudon potentially later back in. This Kartana also still in like a really good spot. I mean, this sort of combination that Brandon has on the field, that Kyogre Kartana, is kind of scary now.
And looking at what moves Brandon picked, it was the Water Spout and the Sacred Sword. So even if Water Spout wasn't able to pick up the knockout, it would have been able to remove that Incineroar from the field. An interesting adaptation from Meghan. It's not the Groudon that takes its place on the field. It's actually that Talonflame. I would have thought that the Groudon would have come out on the field so that it can get Sun Up, it can, you know, start and try and whittle down some of these Pokemon, but it's possible that we might be seeing that Z move coming up that we saw in yesterday when Meghan was on stream from that Talonflame, but would that even be enough to remove, I mean, the Kyogre from the field? Most likely.
Yeah, and like what would be fun is, you know, you could bring in that Groudon now for that Xerneas spot. We've got the Kyogre getting out of there. Both of these trainers were wanting sort of that weather for later. Lunala coming in, and now we are going to be getting that Fly MZ. So, you know, that priority Z move is going to be so nice. It doesn't really even matter which Pokemon it like goes down into, because it's going to be taking a lot of damage. Could be, you know, proccing a Focus Sash from Kartana, but also going to be doing a lot of damage to Lunala.
The thing to keep in mind, though, is that when it comes down to these Groudon versus Kyogre games, whoever gets their opponent down to 2 Pokemon first is the one who's going to get their weather up for the remainder of the game. And the fact that this, you know, Supersonic Sky Strike went into that Lunala is going to force the Kyogre back out onto the field. And as long as Meghan's Xerneas holds on through that Smart Strike, which it does, she can then switch in Groudon and get the Sunlight up, and that'll be just something else to sort of help keep this Xerneas around while she figures out a way to knock out that Kartana.
Yeah, well, what's crazy, too, is because she's used that Fly MZ already, she still has the Gale Wings ability activated.
Oh, yeah.
She's still able to get the priority Brave Bird here. I mean, so even if Kyogre comes in, you can, Dazzling Gleam, you can Brave Bird priority, and you're going to be faster than that Kartana with that Geomancy up, and you still have, like, those priority moves. So I think Meghan is in a very commanding spot right now. Like, there's nothing Brandon can do to kind of stop that. You can try to hide behind his attack, but, you know, there's not much else.
There isn't much else, but remember that Xerneas also has such low health. You know, she's going to need at least 2 attacks into that Kartana to guarantee the knockout, assuming that it is the Focus Sash variant. So something like a Dazzling Gleam plus an attack into that Kartana would mean that she's open to take damage from an Origin Pulse or something even worse. But I really like this play here where she called that Protect, was able to remove the Kyogre, and now it's just her game to win.
Yeah, I mean, that could have hit probably definitely just doesn't even matter.
I don't think so, no.
But yeah, that Kartana hiding behind the Protect this turn, it doesn't even matter because, like you said, she calls that Protect or that Detect, whichever, you know, Kartana users like to use. Kyogre goes down, and we have the Flare Blitz, but there's nothing Brandon can do to stop it. Kartana doesn't have enough firepower on its own to stop both of these, and we see the forfeit now from Brandon.
Yeah, so really well played game 1 from Meghan there. I like how she was able to keep that Xerneas safe with all that switching, and I really liked how the first knockout that she took was the opposing Incineroar on the field. I think that's going to be really key to her strategy moving forwards, because as we saw, Brandon really likes having that Incineroar as his pivot, and I think once it's removed from the field, it just makes it that much harder to sort of figure out, you know, how do I get these Pokemon in the places where I need them to be. If I were Brandon going into game 2, you know, definitely bring the Incineroar again. I really liked the Pokemon he brought to that game. I think that as much as it would be cool to see the Terrakion, I don't know if there's really much of a benefit given the fact that Meghan's probably going to bring her Talonflame again to bring it with him on the field. I think he just needs to maneuver it a little bit differently. You know, that Kyogre was so fast. It probably is Choice Scarf. Maybe try and start things off with that, or otherwise, you know, deal big damage a little bit quicker rather than taking the slow setup. And then maybe once one of Meghan's Pokemon is removed, maybe like her own Incineroar, for example, then you can start sort of taking your time and slowing things down and trying to maneuver a little bit more.
Yeah, and I think the biggest problem here is, you touched upon this in game 1, was the weather war here as
yes,
well. Like,
yes.
The Groudon Kyogre matchup is always really tough because whoever has that dominant weather is able to kind of take control of that game. And, you know, we had seen Brandon rely on that Incineroar, and Meghan was like, yeah, that's cool, my Groudon's at -2, but I have a way to win this, and there's nothing you can really do to stop it, even with Roar on your Lunala.
It's very interesting that you bring that up, too, because I think the most interesting thing to me about the Sun and Moon formats combined is that you don't necessarily need to have a form of weather on your team. Whereas in the Ultra format, you know, once Primal Reversion's back out on the field, weather is going to be essential. So in this matchup, I think weather is really key, but in some other matchups in the future, I don't think it's as much of a thing to play. I think that the issue that Brandon has mostly is that Choice Scarf Kyogre really does need the rain in order to deal any amount of consistent damage, whereas Groudon can kind of function without it. So the onus is on Brandon to make sure that the weather is in his favor, and the fact that Meghan can just disrupt that is kind of gives her a leg up in this matchup. Yeah,
well, we do have the same exact lead from both players here as they did in game 1, so no switching from them on either part here. So, you know, this fake out and impossible Z move from Brandon is definitely going to matter now, because we saw last time it went into that Xerneas, which became an Incineroar. So targeting down a Pokemon with a Z move is essential now for Brandon.
Or he could just save it for later. I mean, there's nothing sort of insisting that he uses a Z move on this first turn. If he's unsure about what Meghan's going to do, or if she's going to switch something differently, as we do see appear on screen, there's no harm in just saving it for a future turn.
Yeah, we might almost see kind of like a mirror of game 1, turn 1, where we've got now actually that Groudon getting out of the field in place for that Incineroar, and a Protect actually from Xerneas here on this turn. So no matter what Brandon does, you know, something's going to only take minimal damage or no damage. Oh, but Brandon changes it up, goes for the Tailwind, gives himself that speed control and that advantage for later on. So, you know, able to understand, hey, you know what, I'm not going to try to do this again, and I'm going to try to make sure. Oh, I think that U-turn was going to be going into for a Kyogre, so that would have been really nice for Brandon. However, getting that Tailwind up is so nice for him. So it's a little bit of a better spot than he was before.
Yeah, this Lunala now, if it does want to use the Z move, I think it's in a much better spot, because the Xerneas burned its Protect. You know, yes, it can go for a double, but that's not guaranteed to happen. It can target down that slot. If there's a switch, the Incineroar is already out on the field, so you know it's going to be doing big damage. And then Brandon's own Incineroar can go for another U-turn pretty safely here. If Meghan wants to save the Geomancy for later, she needs to switch that Xerneas out. And I don't know, like if you switch in the Groudon, you might lose that. If you switch in the Talonflame, you won't have a chance to match the Tailwind. But instead, it is going to be that Groudon taking potentially a nasty Z move.
Yep, yeah, that Xerneas, she's trying to protect it, but that Groudon is not going to appreciate this, what is it?
Menacing Moonraze Maelstrom.
Gosh, you would think I would know that by now after seeing it so many times yesterday. But yeah, now, like you said, Brandon has that perfect opportunity to go for that Z move, and whatever he targets down is just, it's not going to be pretty for Meghan.
In your defense, I was calling it malicious Moonraze Maelstrom the other day. I think it's just as long as you get that alliteration right and respect the fact that this is probably the most powerful Z move in the game right now, you'll be fine with the name. So.
Yeah, this Groudon is just not going to like this at all. But I think Meghan is understanding she needs that Xerneas for later, and we know that Lunala has Roar as well. I mean, it still manages to hold on, which is really nice.
And instantly gets the berry.
Yeah, so still in a pretty good spot. No Intimidates either, but now we've got that U-turn from Brandon is able to happen now, goes into that Groudon, and it's kind of able to come back with that Kyogre potentially. We know that it has that Water Spout, and I don't know if Meghan's Incineroar, I don't know if this Incineroar still has fake out potential though.
It's hard to say. I almost want her Incineroar to go for something like a U-turn here so that she can get the Talonflame on the field, and then the Tailwind isn't as big of a threat. It's possible that you know, Brandon could try and switch around or otherwise try and negate things that way. But instead, lowering the special attack of both these Pokemon by 1 stage, which is helpful, but that's not going to protect the Groudon. I think she's in a position where she's forced to let it get knocked out next turn so then she can adjust.
Yeah, I mean,
or she could protect and stall out the Tailwind.
Yeah, I think the Snarl is really nice though, because obviously Brandon is very special attack heavy right now, and trying to, you know, lower that damage output as much as possible with something like Snarl. Like you guys had a lot of people touch on this yesterday. Snarl over Knockout has become so much more popular, and we can see why, as that Lunala is going to be switching out. Here we get that Incineroar back on the field, get an Intimidate into both of these Pokemon, which are super important against the physical attackers on Meghan's side. Also gets that Fake Out for later, and you know, it's going to be a nice position for Brandon.
It is a nice position for Brandon. I'm wondering right now how much damage this Kyogre is going to do at -1 special attack to this Incineroar. If that's not enough to knock it out, which I would assume it is. I mean, that's a full power Water Spout. That Incineroar is at full health, but it's super effective in the rain. Oh, okay. I think she knew that was coming. That is a good cat.
Yeah, especially because, you know, now we've got that berry potential as well. You get another Snarl. Oh, but this is the Kyogre. That -2 would have been so nice, but that miss is going to hurt, and Megan's going to have to figure out some way to recover from that, because, you know, every chance you get to stop the damage output from a Kyogre like that is always nice. Missing that Snarl is going to be something she has to, like, quickly adjust now for.
And she needs to decide how she wants to take this moving forward. I think she has 2 options. So one option is to switch the Groudon out, let something get knocked out so that it can come back in with the sun, and just hope that she can get enough knockouts or otherwise sort of lock the sunlight on the field moving forward in the game. I think that's too risky. I think her better option is to let the Groudon get knocked out, and then if she has that Talonflame in the back, sort of rely on it to not only get speed control back on her side with a Tailwind, or you know, use that Z move as well to deal massive damage. But it looks like she's going to be going for more of a weather-based strategy. I'm not sure. I don't know if switching the Xerneas here is good, because yes, it can take one of these Water Spouts most likely, but I don't think it can take 2.
Yeah, and so that Xerneas is going to come in place of that Kyogre. It only gets down to half health. That Snarl from earlier really helping. Obviously, Incineroar is going to go down on this turn, but it allows Megan sort of a chance to bring in that Groudon once more, or bring in that Talonflame. But Brandon going to answer that with his U-turn from the Incineroar. Has a chance to bring back in Lunala, as Tailwind is going to expire soon, is going to be able to set that up again. So I think Brandon is able to kind of take control back of this game.
Lunala would be the perfect switch in here, specifically for the Tailwind reason, because even if Meghan does use Tailwind next turn, I don't think that Lunala is going to get knocked out in 1 turn, so then it could just answer it the following turn.
Yeah, I mean, you really have to focus out on the Kyogre too, because the Kyogre's damage output is just too terrifying to not stop it from the get-go, and I think Brandon's counting on that as well.
Yeah, and that's the good thing about Choice Scarf Kyogre, is that when it's in situations like this, you can't ignore it, but you almost have to if you want to try and swing momentum back in your favor. I think a lot of trainers have sort of been, you know, using Choice Scarf Kyogre less and less, because some of those other combinations like the Lunala, the Xerneas that we've been seeing do really well at this regional are a little bit easier to sort of play. But when you do get Kyogre in a spot like this where, you know, it just has a couple of turns where it's doing, you know, 40, 50, 60% of damage to the Pokemon on the opposing side of the field, that really adds up, and that puts a ton of pressure on your opponent.
Yeah, and I mean, Brandon's in such a good spot. Even with the setup, he's got an almost full health Kyogre, could go for the Water Spouts, Q could go for the Tailwinds. Like, he has so many options available to him right now, where Megan's really going to have to rely on. She has to figure out some way to go, I think, to be able to deal out damage. And she's ever really safe to set up Geomancy, because we also know that there's the roar from the Lunala, but Brandon's going to be like, I'm going to save this weather for later. Let's bring in Incineroar here in place of that Kyogre, get the Fake Out, the Intimidate onto the Groudon. I mean, if that Groudon gets stuck on this field and isn't able to reset, Megan's not going to be able to really do anything.
No, but this is an opportunity for that Xerneas to get a Geomancy in. So if this Lunala, I imagine it must be going for a Roar, because it hasn't attacked yet. If Lunala does go for Roar, I think this game is going to be over in Brandon's favor. But if not, this might be the opening Megan waiting for.
Yeah, especially because that, you know, that got on at -1, even with the Precipice Blades after having broken that shield, I think we saw it manage to hold on at least a little bit. So it's still, oh no, it goes for Tailwind instead, but that's going to be tough, because if Brandon had been able to like roar out that Xerneas, it would have been just so nicely in his favor. The Precipice Blades connecting with both Pokemon here. is going to be able to, you know, at least get some damage on there. Lunala is still holding on very nicely because of that -1 into the Groudon. But Tailwind, I think, is what we were expecting until we saw that Geomancy.
So Meghan forced to switch out that Groudon this turn if she wants to keep the Sunlight around. Forced to protect the Xerneas as well to not get faked out and then not get knocked out by that Lunala. I just realized this. Brandon still has all 4 of his Pokemon, and even though I think they've all taken damage at this point, except maybe the Kartana in the back, you know, it just feels like he has so many more options here, and I think we're really seeing his strategy kind of pay off with those Tailwinds. He's putting a lot of pressure on Meghan.
Yeah, no protect from this Xerneas as that instead goes straight for that fake out, and a Side Shock from Lunala doubles down into that Xerneas is going to make sure that, you know, that Geomancy threat is no longer, and that Groudon is now going to be stuck here. Oh, gets a Swords Dance though. I mean, I think it's a bad choice here because like the damage output would have been so much better, and it's tough because you're at +1 now, or you're at +1 after that Intimidate, but Brandon now has the options to kind of cycle out. He's going to have the Weather Dominance, and I mean, even with the Talonflame here and the priority Z move and, you know, the ability to go for like the Brave Bird or match an own Tailwind, your Groudon is literally there for not being able to do anything.
Well, the interesting thing too is that the Kyogre is still in the back with the Scarf, so Meghan needs to figure out a way so that her Talonflame can keep all of its health so that Gale Wing doesn't go away, so she can answer that. And looking at the Pokemon on the field, you know, with Tailwind up, that Groudon's going to be moving last. Talonflame's going to be taking damage this turn. Again, it just seems like it's such a tall ask for her to figure out how to maneuver this in a way that will end favorably for her.
And Groudon protecting itself this turn as Talonflame does end up Tailwind. But Moongeist Beam from Brandon's Lunala going to go into that Talonflame, going to break the Gale Wing, so no more priority flying type moves here. Does so much
damage. Or just knock it out.
It's so close to that. And, you know, a double down into that Talonflame. I mean, Brandon correctly identifying, hey, you know, your Groudon is literally a sitting duck there, so let me just take care of this Talonflame. Don't want to deal with that Z move. Yeah, you got Tailwind up, but, you know, matter because you knock out into my Pokemon, I've got that Kyogre and I can click Water Spout.
I mean, depending on how much speed she trained this Groudon in, maybe after Tailwind expires on Brandon's side of the field, it'll outspeed the Kyogre and like get a crit or something with Precipice. I don't know.
That's
like,
so much
again,
thinking.
it's like, okay, you need this, you need this, you need this. At this point, I think this game is over.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, Pokemon is a game where, you know, the chances of things happening are just so all over the place that you can't really, I mean, there's always a chance for something, right?
There is. Maybe it's time for Meghan, though, to start thinking about Game 3, kind of rewinding things back to where this game went wrong. It really was that Tailwind at the beginning of the game that set the pace, and that gave Brandon's Choice Scarf Kyogre an opening. And it was a great adaptation from him because he saw that his strategy from Game 1, where all the switching and everything didn't go well, so he decided, okay, I'll just be more offensive about everything, and it worked out. So I think Meghan has to figure out a way that she can sort of lead with something that allows her to respond not only to his defensive play style, but to his offensive play style as well. Oh, well.
Oh, man. I mean, so
Groudon tried. Yeah, it tried its best.
You know, gets the knockout on the Lunala, but Kartana's such a nice spot. I mean, Brandon just kind of playing as safe as he can, where, you know, you bring in the Kartana, so you're able to, like, do that damage there. Your Lunala gets knocked out to Precipice Blade, sure, but now you can bring in Kyogre, you can bring in Incineroar again for the fake out. Yeah, you get that fake out, you get Intimidate. You're at neutral now for Megan's Groudon. And this is just, I think this is exactly how he wanted to play Game 1. That Tailwind, like you had said, was the perfect way for him to set up. And I think Meghan needs to understand that now, like, hey, the faster she can get out of both Lunala and Incineroar, the better spot that, like, she can be in. But I think Kartana is so essential to Brandon's matchup because we've seen it put a lot of pressure onto her side of the field.
Yeah, and, you know, I was kind of looking at her team and trying to figure out, like, other options she has going into Game 3. I think the presence of the Kartana is probably why she isn't bringing the Venusaur, because if you think about it, Venusaur's Chlorophyll ability would basically give it a free, you know, Tailwind. It makes it super fast when the sunlight's on the field. It threatens that Kyogre, and it's able to disrupt things with Sleep Powder. You know, we haven't seen anything that could sort of stop the Sleep Powder. No Tapu Koko yet from Brandon on the field. But then as long as that Kartana's around, it's like, well, I always have one Pokemon that can switch into these attacks that just does no damage whatsoever.
Yeah. I mean, so here's the thing though. You know, Meghan protected herself, and Brandon protecting that Kartana this turn as Tailwind finally expires here. So you know, Brandon just being like, hey, you can play this out, but I'll play it even safer. I'll make sure all the Pokemon I have can deal with your Groudon really easily. Kyogre's gonna come in here, be super comfortable, and just flex that rain onto that Groudon and be like, hey, it's nice seeing you again. Here's a water spout to the face. Let's go to game 3.
I know. I wonder what Meghan's thinking right now. It's pretty clear to me that, you know, this game was over a few turns ago. She must be thinking through her strategy about how she wants to figure things out moving forwards, as it looks like the game is finally over and now we will be entering game 3. I like the Incineroar lead from her, but maybe Talonflame over the Xerneas, so that way she can easily match the Tailwind or even match the Z move really right away. Yeah, I feel like maybe a switch up from Xerneas and Groudon would be really nice, because now you have to understand that the Lunala is a bit more of a threat, right? So definitely.
Either one. So I think as long as you can bring Xerneas, you can bring Groudon, but I don't think you can bring both in turn 1. And I think Groudon staying in the back would be a lot better, because Brandon's done such a good job from from both games keeping his Kyogre hidden until he absolutely needs to bring it out, right? He's shown in game 2 that he's really good at the setup and then going into the damage output. Yeah, and that's how you want to play something like Choice Scarf Kyogre, or really any of these like you know, weather-bringing Pokemon that are meant to just kind of be fast, deal damage, and disrupt your opponent. As tempting as it is to do something like a fake out, you know, Choice Scarf Rain Water Spout lead, knowing that your opponent has a Pokemon like Groudon in the back, that's like an easy switch in to you know, sort of mitigate that potential damage. If you save your Kyogre in the back, you can then save it for when you know the situation is ready, when all its counters are removed, and then you basically get what game 2 was. Yeah, I mean, they locked in so fast on that for that game 3, and I think part of that is Brandon understands his matchup now, and I think Meghan took that extra time to be like, okay, this is what we're doing for game 3. Yeah, and I like it when players use that time to sort of think. Sometimes the fact that team preview is only like, what, 100 seconds or so really stresses me out. But if you can take a couple turns from game 2 to get an extra minute or 2 to think, why not? Yeah, and so we do have that same lead now from Brandon once again, that Lunala and Incineroar, which served him so well in game 2, and Meghan actually switching it up, so I really like seeing that. We do have the Xerneas and Talonflame, so potential for the match Tailwinds, but I think now if you're Meghan, you take advantage of that Gale Wings as much as you can. You have to, and it makes me wonder if you're in Brandon's shoes. I mean, you know that either a Prankster Brave Bird or a Prankster, or not Prankster, a Priority Tailwind or Brave Bird is coming your way. Do you go for the fake out into the Talonflame to immediately stop the threat of that ability, or do you stop the Xerneas? Man, okay, that's interesting. Yeah, so you fake out the Xerneas apparently, and you taunt the Lunala, and now you've got the to stop the Tailwind from happening here with that Lunala, and now you still have that ability to go for that priority flying type move. That Incineroar can't really do anything. That was so risky. Whatever Brandon brings in now is. He's not going to be able to take anything from like this priority. I mean, look at what Meghan just did. She left her Xerneas open to get potentially knocked out by that Lunalium Z. That's crazy. You can protect this turn. You can switch out that Xerneas. That was an amazing prediction. That was so good. That was so good. Meghan. Like, because now she has that option to deal so much damage with that Talonflame. This Xerneas is like, you know, sitting pretty there, but you can switch it out. You can do whatever you want with it. It's that Talonflame now that's the threat. It is, and that's going to instantly change, I think, how Brandon's going to move forward. I mean, fortunately for him, Lunala being taunted only means it can't Tailwind or Roar, so it can still be an offensive threat on the field if it wants to be, but instead using this opportunity to pivot to maybe something a little bit more, you know, defensive, maybe that Kartana to immediately threaten that Xerneas again would be a good way to try and get himself back on track. And Meghan is actually going to switch out that Talonflame, brings in her own Incineroar now, and is able to get Intimidate into both of these Pokemon. She is saying, you know what, let's go. I'm going to Geomancy right here. And if Brandon predicts that and goes for a Z move into that Xerneas as opposed to the Talonflame spot, that'll be crazy to see. But Meghan is like, I feel really comfortable clicking Geomancy. Let's see what happens. It's a risk, but I mean, when else is this Xerneas going to get the opportunity? It felt like last game she was just waiting and waiting for a moment. But this is okay. There's the Z move. So whatever the Z move goes into, if it goes into that Xerneas, I will be so impressed right now, because that is Meghan saying, you know, I'm going to take the risk and see what happens, and it's going to be like one of the scariest calls here, but. I don't think there's any reason not to go into the Xerneas.
Yeah, I'm trying to think why you'd need the extra damage on a Talonflame, and the only thing I can think of would be, like, I don't know, there's like a light screen or something on the field. Like, I feel like if Brandon was going to use the Z move, the Xerneas was the obvious target, and as we see Lunala crash into it, with the special defense boost, I would imagine Xerneas should be okay.
I wonder, though, if you double down into the Xerneas with your own Incineroar now, right? Because so the Xerneas takes it so nicely, gets it about to like half health, but now if you got that Flare Blitz, is why I think if you're double targeting down this the Xerneas, if you get rid of it, then you're also in a fantastic spot for Brandon, and it's gonna go. Oh! HP! Oh my gosh!
I was gonna say, like, I think the Incineroar needs the sunlight to guarantee that knockout. That was a lot closer than I was expecting, but that Xerneas just doing what it has to do. It's holding on. Meghan can go for something like a fake out into the opposing Incineroar and then a Moonblast into that Lunala, but the Shadow Shield ability is still active.
Yeah, and you have to protect that Xerneas now and be, oh my gosh, that was crazy. Like, that double down was so smart from Brandon, but that 1 HP, like, this Xerneas is like, no, we're going to stick around and I'm going to try to do something because I did not Geomancy for no reason.
Fortunately for Meghan, she has Snarl on her Incineroar. This is like the perfect turn to use it because if the Incineroar switches out, you're either potentially breaking a Focus Sash on the Kartana or you're getting a special attack drop on the Kyogre. But more importantly, if you're able to connect the Snarl with the Lunala, that's going to break the Shadow Shield, lower its special attack one stage, and then give you an opportunity to attack with the Xerneas the next turn. As long as Lunala remains on the field, you know, it's taunted. It's going to have to attack.
All right, there's that Kartana switch in here from that Incineroar. Is not going to be intimidated, so it's going to be able to deal a lot of damage out later. Obviously, Meghan's going to go for Protect because this is the only thing you can do with the Xerneas, and I think we might be seeing that Snarl to break that Shadow Shield as well.
It's going to have to connect, though.
Yeah, Moongeist Beam going to go into that Incineroar instead. Brandon being like, you know what, I know you're going to Protect. I'm not going to do anything with that. We're going to take out everything else that we can before this happens. And so Moongeist Beam not going to do absolutely anything to that or gets a critical Harrison, but we do have the Snarl. Oh no! Lunala avoids it! So that would have been absolutely perfect for Meghan if that did not oh my gosh, that spot has been cursed for almost every single top like match that I've seen so far, but Lunala's taunt wears off.
We're off as well.
This is such a fun match, guys. I don't know if you can tell that I'm so much fun with this.
Yeah, Brandon just getting lucky. The timing of that couldn't have been more perfect. It's almost like the Xerneas has to decide now if it wants to try and knock out that Kartana with something like a Moonblast and just, you know, take what it can get, or if she wants to, you know, use this opportunity to break that Shadow Shield ability. I don't think she wants to, like, switch things around in this spot. I think she wants to wait for her opponent, you know, Brandon, to try and get that Tailwind up on the field if that's what he wants. But I don't know. There's also the option of the double Protect, but that's so risky.
There's not
Snarl already missed once.
God, I mean, ooh, Incineroar's in such a bad spot too because you've got that non-intimidated Kartana. It has a chance to go for that Sacred Sword, and you know, Kartana's actually going for Protect this turn, so that's actually really interesting because I think you could just gone for damage there. But Dazzling Gleam, from that Xerneas, you're gonna have to break that Shadow Shield and maybe go for like either a Snarl again now and see what happens. You can break the shield here. Beam is gonna go.
It has to be targeting the Xerneas to get that knockout
now, and you can bring in Groudon if you have it in the back. We know she has Talonflame as well, so and she still has a potential for Z move, right? So the Xerneas for her is like dead weight. And now you can go for a U-turn, actually. It goes into that Lunala as well.
U-turn into the Talonflame here, or I guess the Groudon, it doesn't really matter, because I think both those Pokemon are going to be coming out on the field now that she has the opportunity to send 2 Pokemon in. She could also send in the Incineroar over the Groudon, but...
Oh, you bring in Groudon here, possibly, and then you bring in that Incineroar for that Fallen Xerneas, go for the Fake Out, the Intimidate.
Like, I think she needs to bring in the Talonflame to respect the threat of the Tailwind from the opposing Lunala. As long as it's on the field, that's something that she's going to have to worry about. And honestly, you know, Talonflame is still going to do a lot of damage to that Kartana as well. Once that Tailwind's up on the field, I don't think the Kartana is going to be able to knock it out, but there's the Groudon, so... I don't know. It's such a toss-up. It really is going to depend on how she wants to play this, whether she values, you know, the speed control potential with the Tailwind or having the fake-out option moving forwards with the Incineroar.
Yeah, so now we've got that Groudon and Incineroar here. So we've got the Sun, we've got that Intimidate now into that Kartana. We've got the Incineroar being able to go for the fake out, and there's just you know, so much that can happen now for Meghan that could go right. You've got that fake out potential, and that Precipice Blades being able to go over as well. You stop the Kartana this turn, you can take an attack or two from Lunala, and yeah, you have to figure out how to stop that Tailwind. But if you could just get damage into that Lunala as well with that Groudon, who's not intimidated as of right now.
It's not, but I mean, what you just said was like, okay, you do this, you do this, you do this, you do this, and the fact that the Kartana is switching out is going to give this Groudon a bit of an opening, but you know, we've already seen how much an Intimidate does to sort of mitigate that Precipice Blades. Maybe if Meghan's able to predict this switch and go for the Sword Stance, she'll have a good slot of moving forwards, but instead it looks like she's playing it very safe, and I don't know if she can afford to play it safe at this point.
Yeah, that Protect for the Groudon is going to make sure it doesn't get hit by a Moongeist Beam, but allowing now Meghan to go for a U-turn. Is going to go down into that Incineroar, brings in that Talonflame. The problem is Talonflame is now susceptible to that fake out from Brandon's own Incineroar. So her Talonflame is at full health still, but that fake out is going to be able to stop that.
But it's whether or not you want to fake out the Talonflame or stop the Groudon for going from a -1 Precipice Blades or a Sword Stance. It's sort of Brandon's choice. Like, what Pokemon does he have in the back? How can that handle both these threats? If I were in his shoes, I would say, you know, I'm more worried about the Tailwind because that has the potential to shut down my own Kyogre. You know, maybe I can try and match it with the Lunala this turn, but maybe Meghan goes for something like the Fly EMZ to try and just knock that out immediately before I have a chance to break the Gale Wings ability. I think Talonflame is going to be the target of this fake out, which I really like this switch from Meghan. I think she's just acknowledging that opportunity and also, you know, just trying to stop that Incineroar from whittling down Groudon's health even further.
Yeah, so Incineroar comes back in for that Talonflame. You get another Intimidate down into Brandon's own Incineroar. Lunala's still sitting there pretty, you know, is like, there's not much you can do to touch me, so let's just, let's just attack things. Yeah. And the Moongeist Beam going to go back into whatever Meghan's, you know, everything she has here is going to take damage.
Yeah.
That Groudon just not taking that well. Precipice Blades, though, is able to hit both Pokemon here, is still at -1, however, is at least going to be able to get a lot of damage onto both these Pokemon, is going to proc that berry on that Incineroar for Brandon's side. So Brandon's still sitting in a very good spot, is able to at least control his own damage output right now, and still threaten a lot of pressure onto Meghan as U-turn allows him to kind of pivot, and I think we might be seeing that Kyogre now.
This is the perfect spot for the Kyogre to come out on the field because these are the two Pokemon it wants to knock out. Talonflame can potentially switch in to take some, take a hit basically for its team, but I don't think Meghan can afford to lose the Talonflame. She can't really afford to lose any of these Pokemon, and it's really interesting to me that it's going to be the Kartana taking the field and not that Kyogre. It does make me wonder, is the Kyogre in the back? Is Brandon like saving it for something specific? I don't know.
I think he's saving it for when Groudon is one of the only two Pokemon or female. Because Kartana threats damage, it's not intimidated. There's no Tailwind here from Lunala, obviously, but Kartana is still a really fast Pokemon against Meghan's side. And, you know, Kyogre easily sweeps up the rest of Meghan's team, and that Talonflame is going to be less of a threat the longer that Meghan is unable to do any damage output.
I just worry for Brandon that if he's saving that Kyogre for too long, you know, the damage on the other Pokemon on his team is going to start adding up, and if Meghan is able to figure out an opening for her Talonflame, you know, that could be detrimental as we sort of enter the end game of this match.
And so that Incineroar is going to get out of there. It's going to save those Intimidates for later, as now we have that Talonflame coming in. So if the Talonflame takes damage, it's going to be a little bit less useful. But Kartana goes for Protect on this turn, is going to hide behind that to make sure that it takes no damage. And also another Protect now from this Groudon. So if Brandon's able to either set up Tailwind or get damage on, that is a free Tailwind right there for Brandon. Is going to make sure now he is faster than everything else on the field. And it's, you know, Meghan isn't out of it yet, but Brandon being able to get up that Tailwind is just going to be huge for him.
I disagree a little bit just because I don't think the Tailwind had to go up that turn. I think that this gives Meghan the opportunity to match the Tailwind in a staggered way so that if she is able to stall out his own Tailwind, she will have one turn where she is guaranteed to be faster than at least some of the Pokemon on his side of the field. This Talonflame still has that Gale Wind's ability, and I would think that if Brandon was anticipating that switch, removing the Gale Wings from the field would have been more opportune, and then the Lunala could have gone for something like the Tailwind next turn.
Yeah, but that Groudon switching out is actually, I think, something that was one of Meghan's only few choices to bring in that
yes,
because
without a doubt.
Kartana is such a scary Pokemon to have against us, and that Groudon had already protected, so that double protect is always risky. Incineroar getting that Intimidate is also really nice.
Oh my God.
We do have that priority Z move now, that Fly EMZ, that Kartana I think already had its sash broken potentially there. So, you know, whatever this Talonflame targets is
It's going to get knocked out.
But that Kyogre's coming in right at a tailwind turn as well. And, like, even though that Groudon's in the back, Kartana still threatens damage onto that Groudon. So, actually, Kartana is going to get, just absolutely demolished here by this Fly-EMZ.
If that Lunala, though, continued to target down that Groudon slot, that's still going to mean Talonflame can go for a Tailwind the next turn, and
or you could go for the Brave Bird into that Kyogre.
You could, and try and weaken the Water Spout, but then, okay, yeah, that needed to happen this turn. That's really unfortunate for Meghan, but getting rid of that priority for Tailwind means that there's really no possibility of her getting it set up, because even when she does use the Incineroar to fake out, presumably the Kyogre that's coming in this turn, that Lunala is still going to be faster, and as we saw, can do enough damage to remove it from the field.
Yeah, so I think this was definitely like Brandon being able to say, hey, you know what? I understand that I'm going to lose Kartana to this Fly-EMZ, but I got Tailwind. I also have, like, I think he still has that Incineroar in the back. He's in a spot where anything he can really do, like Groudon won't be able to do much on its own against all these Pokemon, right?
It's possible that by switching out the Talonflame this turn, sending in the Groudon, Incineroar, if it holds on to a Water Spout from the Sun, which it looks like Meghan's trying to go for, could then use a Snarl, maybe get the knockout on the Lunala, weaken the special attack of that Kyogre, and then I don't even know at that point. It's a good attempt at trying to regain some board control, but instead it looks like one of these Pokemon is just going to be taking yet another Moongeist Beam from this Lunala.
Yeah, I mean, you would have to assume that it goes down into that Groudon spot, which was that Talonflame, because, I mean, those two Pokemon you can switch out, because you can take, damage onto, because Incineroar's not going to really manage, but that's really nice for Meghan that she at least gets that berry back. It's going to be able to get, Precipice Blades for later on. But I think it'll be able to, I think she might be able to survive.
Oh, she'll survive one attack.
But double down from that Lunala.
Exactly.
Is the top part here.
And the thing that we know is that even once Tailwind expires, this Kyogre is going to be faster, this Lunala is going to be faster. Heck, if Brandon wants to, he can even just switch the Kyogre out this turn, and an Intimidate on the Groudon certainly would not be a bad thing to have right now as well. So just an uphill battle for Meghan. Brendan just really, I think he sort of saw how Meghan played game one and probably how she played their matches in Swiss, and just sort of really thought through this, how to play this. And it makes me wonder if in game one he thought that maybe he didn't need the Tailwind, but clearly it's just paid off for him so much.
Yeah, and so now we've got that Talonflame coming back in. That Groudon going to want to save itself for later. Water Spout, though, from this Kyogre is going to be able to knock out that Talonflame very easily. Obviously, Incineroar is still able to hold on just a little bit here, but
has Incineroar had its berry
I think
yet?
it already ate its berry from, no, there it goes. Now it's eating its berry.
So it gets one turn. So it's not going to get knocked out by the Moongeist Beam. Snarl, I think, is what she has to go for here.
Yeah, Snarl's like the only option. And
it already missed once earlier.
Yeah, this is like her playing to the best that she can right now, given the circumstances she's in. Obviously, it goes for a U-turn actually instead.
So fake out again?
Hey, if that Kyogre is locked into that Water Spout, then you do the best you can against that. Groudon comes in here, you can do what? Survive maybe one Water Spout. You go for the fake out. You go for Precipice Blades.
Yeah, fake out Precipice Blades. If Brandon switches in, I guess Tailwind's expired, so that helps with the Incineroar on his side of the field. But then that still gives the Kyogre the opportunity to simply switch out, switch back in, Water Spout.
Yeah, so it's tough, but
it's Brandon's game to lose, honestly. Like, if he doesn't switch the Kyogre out here, I think that's him giving Meghan an opening, and I think that's what she's playing for, to be blunt about it. And that's totally fair. I mean, there's so much pressure on these trainers right now. I can't even imagine, what they're thinking.
I'm stressed out, and
I know. I feel like I'm so stressed out behind this desk.
There we go. So, yeah, Brandon correctly identifies that he is switching into that Kyogre, brings in that Incineroar, gets the Intimidate, gets the Weather Control for later, also gets, that fake out once more. And I think if Meghan understands that, she could just, no matter what she does, that Kyogre is gonna be what wins the game for Brandon here. And like Lunala's like, hey, that's cool. Like, I got you. Let me set up Tailwind, and this is what's gonna happen. You go for the Psyshock now into that Groudon.
No more Moongeist Beams.
Yeah, I mean, the Psyshock is like, well, yeah, why not? Precipice Blades. I mean, Lunala avoiding attack is just rubbing salt into the wound now for Meghan on this. You hit the Incineroar and -1, but now Kyogre comes in. You're in the sun again. You're in the rain again. No more fake out from this Incineroar. Sure, you can snarl the Lunala and get it going. But
yeah, so it's a 2v1. It's a 2v1.
This is the type of 2v1 that Kyogre likes to switch into, especially.
I didn't say that.
Right?
I didn't say that. But
it's
yeah,
a 2v1,
no, it is.
but it's going for the 1 as opposed to the 2.
Yeah, no, totally is. And unfortunately, Water Spout is 100% accurate, and I don't think it even matters that Kyogre has some damage down on it. I mean, both these Pokemon are weak to water. Rain's up on the field. It is what it is. But very well played by Meghan. I think that she really kind of brought this game out and kind of exhausted every possible win condition that she had. And especially, again, with all the stress going on in this game, that is so hard to do. I don't know. I'm curious why the Protect there. There's no way this Incineroar can survive that, right?
No, I mean, it's it snarled the Lunala, didn't get a chance to snarl the Kyogre.
Exactly.
Like, it's in the rain. This is like the saddest like Hoenn matchup right now. The Kyogre
saddest Hoenn matchup.
Kyogre's like, hey, nice to see you again. Here's some more Water Spout to your face. Double Protect.
Oh, I mean, she was going for the like 5 Protect to start out the rain.
I've heard of 3 Protects in a row before, so I can't blame her for playing to her ass as much as she can. But
that would have been insane.
That would have been the game changer, and I think proper retribution for the snarl miss from earlier. But
I know
Brandon adjusted so well.
I know it makes me wonder how the game would have gone if that snarl had connected with the Lunala way back when.
Lunala would have been knocked out because that Xerneas was in such a prime position to just take it out of the game.
I know, but that's how Pokemon plays, and I just gotta say, both these trainers played that game so well. It really is unfortunate when a roll or something like that happens.
The 1 HP Xerneas.
I know, that was so sick
though.
That was so crazy. Congratulations to Meghan. Congratulations to Brandon. They did an amazing job, and Brandon will be moving on in our bracket to top 4, which I believe we actually have the first match of top 4 all set up. It's going to be Brandon Huang versus Josh Metcham. And then Aaron Traylor is going to be playing the winner of our next match featuring Zaywan Huang and Nick Navarre. So really excited to see them play in a moment. They are getting set up right now on our stage. So while they set up, let's take a moment to talk to Brandon and sort of hear, how stressed out he was in that match.
I know, because we were stressed.
I know.
Oh, my goodness. But, yeah, don't go anywhere. We'll have Brandon and then your last top 8 match.